Good evening, welcome to Featherwood Farm. This is Darcy. I'm gardening in Okemos, Michigan, Zone 5B, and today we're going to do the monthly full garden tour. So in bloom, I'm going to try to focus on only things that are in bloom or changes that I've made. We have this bugbane, which is one of my favorites, one of the bees' favorites as well, as you can see. The spikes just shoot up above the foliage and the flowers open all along them. They're really great. They have a slight fragrance and they are a native. The heucheras are also getting their little flower spikes. Dainty and cute. Good for arrangements as well. This side has seen some pretty big changes since you last saw it. I moved all of the penstemons to the back. That's Amma hiding behind some. And then put, some of the shorter things in the front. So we have Veronica Aspire, which just is not growing very well for me. This is maybe its third season. And yeah, that's the size that it is. These smaller plants are a amulet coreopsis that I grew from seed. They're an annual. And interestingly enough, in this bed, as Amma is pointing out for us, some of my echinaceas have self-seeded kind of all over. So that's exciting. And they are also starting to come into bloom, the parent plants. There. Amma Bean, say hi. And I moved this sedum that was over in that bed to here. This is some type of violet. The name is escaping me. Something violet, yarrow, achillea. Behind that is a monarda. And I have a bunch of culinary sage in this bed. And some more of that seed annual coreopsis there as well. As far as changes go, on the other side, I put in this steel edging to the front of this, threw in a bunch more things that I had started from seed. Some mahogany, splendor, hibiscus, chamomile, the pearl yarrow. I left them in a seed tray for far too long, neglected the poor plants just a little bit, but they will catch up. And over here, that same violet yarrow and same monarda. I'll post both of the names on there. And again, more of those seed plants and a couple of those Veronica Aspires that haven't even started blooming yet. And this is a berry chiffon coreopsis. There's a few of those that got a little trampled. To the other side is the fire pit garden. Probably one of my favorite combinations right now is this cherry pops monarda against the foliage of the young lady smoke bush. It is fantastic. The bees are really enjoying the monarda, but unfortunately it has powdery mildew. And I got these plants in last year and they had it a little bit. I thought maybe it might have been a stress response. I was trying to be hopeful that they would rebound this year. And while they're incredibly vigorous and have grown so much since last year, it is with a vengeance, the powdery mildew. So I'm hoping to find a more disease-resistant variety to put in here because, nothing can really replace the look of these flowers. And I could watch these bees work it all day. You can just hear the humming, or the buzzing rather. And below that, I have some Cheyenne Spear Echinacea in bloom. This bed I tried to do a lot of repeating, so there's another drift of the Echinacea and another drift of that bee balm, also afflicted with the powdery mildew, which interestingly enough, the bee balm in the Monarda in the courtyard does not have powdery mildew, so figure that out. And the last drift of that Echinacea. And I think second to the Cherry Pops Monarda, the star of this garden is the Carl Forrester Feather Reed Grass. The light's hitting it pretty harshly right now, but the kind of bloom heads on these have this kind of dusky pink color. They started off really light, and as they matured got a lot darker. But it is a pretty good garden. It's a nice serene space, and everything's growing in and kind of creating the sense of enclosure that I was aiming for. There's Loudmouth, Pebbles. It's with Lenore. Okay, and dun-dun-dun-dun, coming into the cottage garden, I got all of the cattle panel arches up, so that's exciting, and all of the vining plants are planted. All of the vining plants are planted and are starting to do their thing. So right here is a watermelon that needs some help kind of going up. The bed of dahlias, a little disappointed. I had, I think, 4 that just rotted. The tubers were eaten by insects. Over here are the lilies, which should be blooming soon. Some of them you can kind of see getting close. I yanked a lot of them out. In the front here, I got all of these from Longfield Gardens. The quality is great. And then these ones I got like on clearance sales from the big box stores, and I yanked out a bunch because they were this size and smaller. Weren't going to be usable for anything. So lesson learned. These are winter blush squash, or they might be a gourd. I don't really know the classification. And these are either spark or casparita. And so both of these varieties will trellis up, or rather grow up the trellis. Tomato bed, and that's just the mint. And on the other side are the cucumbers. And the ceramic coop is nearly complete. It's complete enough that they're able to live in it. It just needs a second coat of paint. The door has to be painted, and it needs a little bit more trim added to it. But I have one of those problems where you complete a project 90% of the way, just enough so that it's functional and usable, and then move on to the next project. I hope I'm not the only one. The blueberries have been producing a lot of fruit. Been picking on those every day. This light is a little bit harsh, my apologies. Moving into this part of the garden, I have these lilies that are in bloom, and they look really lovely. Tons of flowers per stem, but it is not the right color for this garden. So they're gonna have to move somewhere else, probably to the fire pit garden where I have a lot of hotter colors. All of the rose marvel salvias I cut back, and they're already starting to flush out again. These are a white nepeta that I grew from seed last year. And not much is in bloom right now. The foxgloves are out. The drumstick alliums are about the only thing right now. And some of this sweet alyssum that I grew from seed and put in. Interestingly enough, though, I have some volunteer seed dahlias growing. So here's one, and there's another one over here and on the other side of this fence. And they are growing from when I had dahlias in here last year and, let them go to seed. And so they germinated all on their own. So that'll be a fun surprise. And this is what happens. This is why we can't have nice gardens. She's hiding. That's Sage. You're trapped. Yeah. Sage and Mel Pickle. Mel Pickle is our matriarch. She's 6 years old. In front of the cut garden and the cottage garden, the Magnus echinacea and the white swan echinacea are just throwing up tons of blooms and opening, unfurling their petals, looking all sorts of beautiful. Another little patch of drumstick alliums. And quite possibly my most favorite plant. She doesn't look great right now, but this is a delphinium, and oh my goodness, it was so beautiful. Just look at those flowers. And I cut a couple stems, and they have a pretty great vase life. She's my one and only right now. I'm going to try to grow some from seed and possibly buy in some more. I will do a tour of the cut garden probably later this week. It's not doing too bad. It's one of those things that didn't go quite according to plan, but I'm definitely not disappointed. Let's just say that. Been cleaning up this area. We've been trying to take out a lot of these just weed trees. It's a lot of buckthorn and Siberian elm, and yeah, they're just not what you want growing. But the ladies are over here helping me. We've kind of cut back everything in this drainage field and have some pretty big plans for that, actually, that I'll probably share in a separate video. Coming around the other side, we built a swing set, which is like my new favorite place. And through here, blooming, these yarrows would be blooming right now. They're starting, but they would be blooming sooner had they gotten in the ground sooner. But the heads are starting to form. This is another Nepeta, I think Blue Cloud, that I grew from seed last year again. And just a big old drift of daisies. The spirea needs to be deadheaded, but it's still throwing out some fresh blooms. And I also came through about a week ago and cut back these salvias and speedwells as well. And these echinaceas, I absolutely love. I love the color and, the fact that it's like a, what do they call them? Double scoop, I think. And I think it's called Cantaloupe Supreme. I don't know if that one's gonna form the double head or not. This time will tell. But they did not get very big. I put these in last year and they're quite possibly smaller than they were when I planted them. So that's interesting. And this is the straight species Monarda. I can never remember if it's Monarda didyma or Monarda fistula. I will post that, but as you can see, also has powdery mildew. This is an orange coneflower is the common name, but species name is Redbud something or other. My Jacob Klein's bee balm is in bloom and also has a little bit of powdery mildew. So I'm gonna have to find a lot of replacements for these. Something that I didn't foresee happening up here, this is a big drift of, it's actually only 4 plants, but looks like a big drift of Pycnanthemum muticum, or I think short-tooth mountain mint, and that's just starting to come into bloom. This is also great for bouquets and arrangements as well, and the bees love this, pollinators love it, apparently Japanese beetles also, oh darn, love it. But it was only supposed to be 2 to 3 foot tall, and like this plant, this one right here, is at least 4 foot tall. It's very close to 4 foot tall. So not something that should be in the front of this bed. It blocks out everything behind it. So I have to remedy that issue. And this is a mellow yellow coneflower. There's some liatris finally starting to bloom. Those are also a pollinator favorite. The milkweed is really looking fabulous. And we're passing under the arbor here. The phlox is out, and the coreopsis is blooming. I can never remember the variety names of these coreopsis. I'll post that. This clematis is doing wonderful on the structure. More bee balm that I will have to yank out. So basically the entire Redbud Grove garden will be getting a rework, I think, which is like sad and exciting all at the same time. But something that is looking great, the Burning Hearts Heliopsis, which I grew from seed last year. You just can't beat the contrast of these really fiery colors against the purple foliage. A couple of them were sacrificed to the deer. It's okay. Oh, looks like these alliums are also just starting to form the globes. And this is also a straight species coneflower. I think this is the Echinacea pallida, I believe, which is the first time it's bloomed for me. It always gets eaten back by the deer before it can do anything. So it's kind of fading out, this one is, but you can see that one's what it looked like. They're kind of cute. Little dainty looking. Big gap right here that I still haven't filled, but I did stick another of those Mahogany Splendor hibiscus, which, if it catches up to where it should be, will more than fill the space. And another one of those white nepitas that I grew from seed. Oh, I think the one thing I missed, let's backtrack, that's in bloom, are these yarrows. And I believe these are summer pastels, grown from seed last year. So 3 very distinct colors on those. All right, let's go peek at the road stand. A lot has changed since my last video update on that. The roof is almost completely done, and the floor on the inside is done, and he has started on the deck. So this was just using the Trex decking that we had left over from our deck update last year. And these are pavers that I had. I kind of forgot that I had them. They were kind of all over the place for different things. And I have one more that I'll put right here. They might not be what I would have specifically chosen, but they will serve the purpose for now. And probably the most exciting update that I could bring you is this. It's a boxwood hedge that I will be putting in. In previous videos, I had discussed building a picket fence that kind of ran all the way to that fence and in the front here, and having an arbor there. And up until I think like 3 days ago, that was absolutely going to still happen. But on a chance trip to Home Depot, these boxwood were 50% off, and they are all sprinter boxwoods, which are a fast growing variety, which I personally have not actually seen in any local nurseries where I am at. They've all had to be purchased online. So yeah, I couldn't say no to that sale, and I think I got like 26 maybe. I went to 2 different Home Depots, bought out all they had, and in the end it's actually coming out less expensive than it would have been to buy all the wood for the picket fence. And I will still have an arbor right here, and they aren't all like spaced properly yet. I just sort of laid them out for myself to kind of visualize, but I'm pretty freaking excited. I think that's going to actually look better than the picket fence. It's gonna absolutely give the look that I was hoping for. But anyway, over here I had to prop the Kodiak Black Deer Villa up with these canes because they were completely flopped on top of these hostas and ferns. So I like the way that they're looking, and I like that they're spreading like that, and I do want to encourage that, but I do have to move these before I lose them. On the other side, the massive plant that is the Six Hills Giant Nepeta. Very soon I will come in and cut back all of this old foliage, and you can see the mound of new stuff is already growing in. That one's also a pollinator favorite. Cerise Queen Yarrow, Firelight Hydrangea is in bloom. And these dianthus are actually doing well here. They are a touch high maintenance. They need to be deadheaded a lot. Looks like I actually need to come through again and do that. But I like the color and the look. I do have a couple of dahlia tubers that I got from Eden Brothers last year, actually. Put in. They're coming up. These are those chocolate Eupatorium rugosum. On the other side, the white wands Veronica are starting to fade out, and then, we'll deadhead those and we should get another flush from them. Those bare root Midnight Masquerade penstemons are looking really pretty. This one, actually, I'm surprised it survived because I accidentally stepped on it like 3 times when I was in here weeding the other day. And this is the Celestial Night Rose. It looks a lot like the Darcy Bustle as far as color goes, and shape actually, but really pretty. And interestingly enough, these rose bushes that I have up here are not being eaten up by the sawfly larvae, so that's good. On the other side, the banana cream daisies are in their full glory, and I love the way they look. I love the blooms, I love the color, but I didn't realize that I put banana cream up here. I had just relocated them from a different part of a different garden, and I thought they were like a Daisy May, which is just a white, and this kind of creamy yellow color does not go with the palette that I had envisioned for this space, so those will have to be swapped out again. And then more of those Midnight Masquerade penstemons. And a few more repeating things. The Firelight Hydrangea cerise queen yarrow back there. And this section is a lot shadier than the other parts of the Daydream garden, so I'm relying more heavily on the foliage and variegation in that. So with the hostas, I picked up a couple of brunneras that I have to get in the ground. This honeysuckle bush that is variegated. The dark color of this dark side of the Moonastilbe, which looks like it's going to get its bloom heads pretty soon. And the foxglove is doing really well. This is the foxglove I grew from seed, and that will bloom over here. Probably not this year, but it should, as well as a couple of Rudbeckias. So there will be some flower color. One thing that I'm not liking, that I didn't think through, kind of on this side, I have a lot of late season and early season flowering things. So like the Astrantias come on, the Tiarella comes on, my Aronia shrubs, and then there's nothing right now. There's a big lull. The Haas Halo hydrangeas are starting to get their blooms, but that's it. Everything else is just foliage until later in the season, when the sedums will bloom and the anemones will bloom. Yeah, so I need to fix that. Oh my goodness, and look at, I put a couple of the hyacinth bean vines back here. And there she is, one little bloom. I have to put a trellis back there for them to climb up. This is one of those tiny tough stuff AHA hydrangeas. So actually rebounded pretty well. I'm happy about that. That one's not flowering, which is interesting because the ones that I'll show you in just a minute in front of our entry gate are. But here's a look at the lace caps on the Haas Halo. Gotta love that. Just so happy with the way that they've grown in. That's the Limelight hydrangea. And see, there is one of the tiny tough stuffs. Got a few blooms. I mean, definitely still very small, but I'm happy with the growth that it's put on and the fact that it is flowering. Oh, and this firelight is actually starting to color up a little bit. You can see a little bit of pink. And then the last one's right there. So another problem that wasn't really supposed to happen, these native asters are enormous. They weren't supposed to be that tall. I'm thinking they must have been a different variety than what they said, or something, because yeah, like this branch specifically is taller than me. It's like every bit of 6 foot, I'd say. And so that is kind of blocking out the goodness that's happening back here, which is more of that bugbane starting to send the spikes and flowers, as well as like astilbes back here, and the Black Hills Beauty, bugbane. Yeah, so I'll have to relocate those, kind of push those to the back so that everything else can show off. And now we are back to the front, about to enter the courtyard garden. So I hope you enjoyed the tour through all of the gardens, seeing what was in bloom. It feels kind of like a transition period where a lot of things have just waned out and we're kind of waiting for other things to come alive. I do rely heavily on a lot of foliage color. I like a lot of purples and variegations and things like that. But the great thing about gardening is there really isn't a wrong way to do it, and nothing is permanent. You can move it all around. Huh, Pickle? You have grass on your face. Look at your beak. Look at your beak. And so thank you from Mel Pickle and I, and we will see you on the next tour.